Mr. Speaker and members, Representative Speaker Pro Tem Mike Johnson moves to call from the calendar House Bill 8, returned just a few moments ago.
Without objection.
House Bill 8 by Speaker Pro Tem Johnson provides relative to Supreme Court redistricting Supreme Court Justice districts, filling of vacancies to eliminate certain statutory provisions.
Representative Mike Johnson on your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. For over 103 years, the highest court in our state, the Louisiana Supreme Court, has only been redrawn, redistricted one time. And that was from information used in the 1990 census. The issue's been discussed many times since then, but no action's been taken. The results of our delay, the past legislative delay, is that we have one of the most malapportioned districts within our Supreme Court of any Supreme Court in the United States. I bring this bill today to address the issues of fairness and accuracy and legality. The bill contains the new state Supreme Court voting district lines, and I'm proud to say that it demonstrates to all Louisianians the collegiality and independence of our state's highest court. The impetus of this new map is several-fold. First, many legislators since 2010 have expressed concern about the population imbalances between the Orleans-based districts and the Baton Rouge-based district. And proposals to address this has been presented in several legislative sessions with no action. Second, despite what you hear or what we might like, we are facing a federal lawsuit in the Middle District of Louisiana asking for a second majority-minority black district. Given the orders from that court in the congressional district case, which has found that 2 of Louisiana's 6 congressional districts must be a majority black, it stands to reason that 2 of 7 districts for the Supreme Court must also contain an additional district. Third, we would be blind if we did not respect the wealth of information and the constitutional understanding of our Supreme Court. We need to respect the state constitution where it commands that the term of any sitting justice cannot be cut short. We find ourselves in this place at this time when that is fortuitous in one way, because we currently have a justice whose seat expires in 2024 and who is barred by our judicial age limit from seeking re-election, and that's Justice Creighton. The timing of the special session is therefore ideal to address these concerns. It is of great importance to note that the proposed boundaries for our 7 Supreme Court districts are a product of a compromise of our Supreme Court members, resulting in a finding by a supermajority of that court, one more than is necessary for all judgments that they issue. This is the very body tasked with administering justice at the highest level within Louisiana boundaries. And they are among the most apt to work together to reach a just and agreeable outcome. And they have. This bill, these maps, these districts come about as a result of nearly 2 years of work by that court. Now, for those who may, and I know you have copies of the map, for those who may have questions about some of the boundary lines, I'd like to lead with several points. And first is, as you are well aware, the Louisiana Constitution provides that each justice on our court will serve a 10-year term. Justices must also reside in the district that they serve for at least 1 year before their election. And as you know, our justices cannot seek re-election after they reach the age of 70 years old. For these reasons, the state Supreme Court voting boundaries had to be drawn in a way that ensured that no two justices eligible to run against one another were paired together in the same district. And the timing to do that is ripe because of Justice Crichton's district, who is finishing his last year of the court and is not eligible to run again. And his seat is up for election in 2024. This map accomplishes that. Secondly, the district lines have been affected by 2 different cases in federal court. The first, which I'd like to refer to as the Chisholm case, was filed in the mid-1980s in the Eastern District of Louisiana. Back then, a group of plaintiffs sued the state under Section 2 of the Federal Voting Rights Act, alleging that the state needed a majority black state Supreme Court voting district centered in Orleans Parish. Although the state has never conceded liability under the Voting Rights Act, it did voluntarily enter into a consent decree that promised that it would maintain a majority black Supreme Court district anchored in Orleans Parish. The map in this bill maintains that district. Justice Piper Griffin is the justice from that district. Now, I will note that the state has sought to end the consent decree, and that matter is on appeal at the Fifth Circuit now. But even if the state successfully ends that decree, that does not remove us, absolve us from the obligation under the Voting Rights Act. The second case is more recent and is also in the Middle District of Louisiana. In that case, it alleges that Louisiana needs a second majority black state Supreme Court voting district. This one anchored in Baton Rouge. I understand that litigation in that case remains ongoing, and that although it's been tied up in ancillary procedures and technicalities, it is now moving. And although the state continues to maintain that it is not liable under the Voting Rights Act, and that the Voting Rights Act does not mandate a second majority black Supreme Court voting district, 5 of our 7 justices have agreed among themselves to include one. This map reflects their compromise in response to the Middle District's order in the congressional case finding that 2 of 6 was mandated. Thus, in our map, we have the new majority minority district, 2. The state's current demographics have given rise to the shape and reach of that district. There's not a large enough black population in southeast portion of Louisiana to create 2 majority minority districts in that region, especially given District 7's coverage of Orleans Parish. So the justices have drawn District 2 to start in East Baton Rouge and run north along the state's eastern boundary to the Delta parishes. I submit to you that the voting boundaries we set out in this bill best achieves the goal of creating 2 majority black state Supreme Court voting districts, adheres to the structure of the Chisholm Consent Decree, and complies with Louisiana Constitution's mandates regarding Supreme Court justice tenure and ensuring continuity of our highest court. More than that, though it is just a compromise reached by 5 of 6 justices who will continue to serve within these new boundaries. Their wisdom and wishes are due weight and consideration on your choice. Our governor, with much more fanfare than me, stood at this podium on Monday and was very clear in his resolve. Number 1, in the litigation, in the hemorrhaging of money for litigation, whose outcome appears to be certain. And number 2, adopt this very map recommended by the supermajority of our state's Supreme Court. Members, I know that redistricting is a hard thing. Drawing lines always is a difficult process. This is but one of the areas that we're going to have to do this. It is a difficult decision that may cause you political pain. And I'm sorry for that. I have it too. This district, this map splits my very own parish in half. But this is a new day in Louisiana. We have no room for cowardice or hesitation to do the right thing, even if it costs us personally or politically. Folks before us took the easier route and kicked the can down the road. Didn't feel the pain that maybe some of you are feeling now. But I believe as I stand here, this body can and will show the courage to make not only this one, but many tough decisions. And therefore, I'm asking you today to do the right thing, do it decisively, and without further delay. Please pass this bill. Thank you.
Representative Marcel for a question.
Thank you. You know, I want to first start out by saying thank you to our pro tem. Thank you to Representative Mike Johnson for doing what's right, even when it's not popular. That takes courage. It takes courage for you to even have filed this particular piece of legislation. But I have some questions that I want to ask you. In committee, this particular map was presented, and if I'm not mistaken, the evidence and the testimony showed that it had been over 100 years since we have reapportioned the Supreme Court. Is that accurate?
In 103 years, we've only reapportioned it one time. And that was back in the 90s using the census from 1990. which is what, 33 years ago? 34 years ago?
Just one time?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. When you decided to do your map, did you take into consideration the population imbalance in the current structure of the Supreme Court justices?
Yes, ma'am. We have one district that has twice as many people as at least 2 other districts, which means that those people, their vote is in essence less than someone else's vote, because one justice has 800,000+ members and another has 400,000.
Okay.
Not members, voters.
Voters. Okay. So,
This corrects that.
and this corrects that. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
So, is it my understanding also that we are currently in litigation, and how long have we been in that litigation as it relates to the Supreme Court justice, and where are we with that?
Well, it goes back to the Chisholm case. So we're, and I don't remember the exact year, but it's much longer than the congressional maps that we are now.
And we're currently trying to figure out how do we satisfy the courts with a map that gives us a second minority majority seat. Is that accurate?
Yes, ma'am, and also balance all districts for all voters.
And tell me if I heard you correctly, that we currently have 7 seats, and one of those seats are being vacated, did you say, by a justice? So this would give us the ability to not interrupt anybody's seat as it's currently configured? Is that what I heard you say?
Yes, ma'am, and that played a major factor in the way this map was drawn, according to the justices.
So do you believe that that is the reason why 5 of the justices voted in favor of your map and in favor of ending this long, much-needed resolve?
Yes, ma'am, that was one of several, but that was the timing made it such that this was the time to do it, because to do it before or later would interrupt the service of those justices in the districts that they have been elected to.
And is your testimony that this does not do that? This doesn't interrupt anybody?
No, ma'am.
This just simply changes the seat to a minority seat? Is that your understanding?
It does that, and also balances the population in the district, the other districts, regardless of race.
Regardless.
Yes, ma'am.
So again, did you know that I'm in support of your bill? And did you know that I will certainly move to approve this bill? I like the fact that you work with the justices. I don't know of any reason why anyone wouldn't support doing the right thing. There is no wrong time to do what is right. And I want to thank you again for your bravery to bring this bill, and at the proper time, I certainly would move it favorably. Thank you so much for your work.
Thank you, Madam Rep. Anybody else?
Representative Wilford Carter for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker Pro Tem, are you aware of a case called Wells versus Edwards, 1973 United States Supreme Court case that says that judicial districts are not required to be have a deviation requirement? In other words, they don't have to be equal,
Yes,
and because they don't represent people, they don't not subject to one man, one vote rule.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I only mention that because this bill seemed to be a compromise for both sides. So the plaintiff side, they seem to give up the requirement that they don't have to have equal districts, okay, which make it a larger area, more expensive to run in, that sort of thing. So they gave that up, and the other side agreed to create the 2 minority districts. So this is a concession bill that come out of the result of both sides agreeing to something.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and I think that's good. So in your map, did you talk to, other than did you have conversation with Supreme Court? You know they supported it. Yes. The opposition to the map, those folks that have opposition to the map, is my understanding that one is going to be there for 10 years anyway.
Yes, sir.
And the other one got to retire pretty soon.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Representative Robbie Carter.
Representative Johnson.
Yes, sir.
Isn't it true that the reason we've gone 105 years and only reapportioned once is because there's a federal court decision, a Supreme Court decision, that says the judiciary is not a representative type elected body?
That's correct, Representative Carter. It's not. It's a service more than a representative.
Do you think that since that opinion that was decided back in the 1800s was decided, that maybe things have changed some and maybe the Supreme Court ought to relook at that as far as is the judiciary a representative type body that should be looked at regularly?
I think it's well established what the law is on that, Representative Carter, and you've been here a long time, so you would know better what's transpired for
I've
the
been here a
last
while,
30.
but I wasn't here when we did the 1980 stuff. That was a little
Okay.
before my time.
Yes, sir.
But I think your bill goes a long way to evening things out, and I support your bill totally because I believe all the districts should be essentially the same in size. I'm not saying we should go by the 5% rule that we have to live by, but they should be proximate to one another in size.
But it's worth noting this bill does, those districts are within the 5% rule. So it only deviates 5% of the ideal population regardless.
I would hope they would not go another 30 or 40 years without changing them around.
Yes,
Thank you,
sir.
Representative.
Thank you.
Representative Slagle.
Mr. Speaker Pro Tem, I know you might not be able to answer this question because I know you didn't draw the map, but do you know why Jefferson Parish, the most populous parish, was removed out of District 1 and taken out of its community of interest?
Currently, Jefferson is split in 3 districts. They absolutely have to be split in 2, and you have to have Judge Piper's district stay where it is now on the West Bank and expand. Her district is over 200,000 more people below the target range. This map helps Jefferson Parish by only splitting them where it is legally required by the Voting Rights Act for Justice Piper's district. It makes Jefferson Parish the biggest parish in the new district and gives it a larger share of the new district than its share of the district they currently are in. That's why it loops around both sides of the river parishes and to put both sides of Jefferson together as much as possible. That's the reason it's drawn that way. And I'm obviously not spontaneous. I asked the same question, and that's what I'm told.
Yeah. Do you know our parish is not opposed to a second majority-minority seat? We're just opposed from the rest of our parish being taken away from its remaining community of interest.
Yes, ma'am, I understand that completely.
And
My
do you
parish is
understand that
split
there
also.
are some maps in the Senate that make the situation with Jefferson Parish, keeping it with the community interest and along with Caddo, that Jefferson Parish would more like to pass?
Yes, ma'am. And I certainly appreciate that. I'm not as familiar with those bills. I'm certain that where it pleases one group, it's going to make another group unhappy. That's why I started out by saying how hard redistricting is. And I apologize to the folks in your district that aren't happy with this. I love them just as much as I do over here. It's just a fact of life when you do redistricting, redrawing of lines, it's going to affect people differently. So
No.
I appreciate it. If there's a better bill, then I'll vote for that. But as best I can tell, this accomplishes all the goals, all the legal requirements, all the things necessary to move us forward, to end the litigation, and to get back to doing the other things that we need to be spending our time and energy on.
No, I appreciate that. I just obviously have to represent my district.
And you do very well with that. Nobody can say that's not happening.
Representative Boyer for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. A couple of questions about the map. The map does or does not allow each of the Supreme Court justices to serve out their term.
Yes, sir, it does.
It does allow that, okay. And would you agree that the current Supreme Court map is grossly malapportioned?
Maybe the worst of any in any state in the country, I'm told by the experts.
And I know we have different requirements on congressional maps versus the Supreme Court map, but I think one of the intents when we're redrawing any map is to get them as close into that, narrow deviation as possible from a population standpoint. And this one definitely gets within the 5% range that we use from other maps. And would you agree that this is a great way to practice when drawing these maps and future maps to
Yes,
get
sir.
it within that 5% deviation?
Yes, sir, Chairman.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Are there any other questions? Are there any amendments, Madam Clerk?
No amendments at the desk, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Johnson, you have a right to close.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, again, I know it's hard to vote on these types of things. I'm asking you to vote your conscience and to vote for this map. Thank you.
Representative Mike Johnson moves for final passage of the bill. Those in favor vote yea. Those opposed vote nay. The clerk will open the machine. Vote your machine, members. Marcel, yea. Mandy Landry, yea. Rep. Landry. Rep. Minna, yea. Rep. Hughes, yea. Are you through voting? 94, clerk will close the machines. 94 yeas, 10 nays, and the bill is finally passed. Representative Mike Johnson moves to adopt the title and moves to reconsider the vote by which the bill finally passed and lay that motion on the table without objection. Open the machine for co-authors. Co-authors? Are you through voting? Rep. Willard, yea. Clerk will close the machine. 21 co-authors.